Welcome to Youth Sports Mastery on the Daily Parks and Rec Show, hosted by Aaron Locks and sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. Join us live every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as Aaron sits down with coaches, recreation professionals, and industry leaders to discuss youth sports, athlete development, coaching excellence, and the positive impact sports have on young people and communities. Tune in for expert insights, inspiring stories, and practical strategies to help young athletes succeed. In this episode, we explore how women in coaching are empowering girls, building confidence, and developing the next generation of leaders.
Good day, everybody, and welcome to the Youth Sports Mastery Show. I'm Aaron Locks, your host. I'm a little fired up today because we've got Pam who's going to join us in a minute, and we're going to talk everything women in sports. It's really cool with the Women's Coaching Alliance, what's going on, and I think we're going to get some real stats and real help. So if you're out there, you got a daughter, you're involved in youth sports in any way, shape, or form, you know what? This is going to be a great piece for you to take a look at. So let's roll the spots, pay the commercials, take care of business, and then we'll be back in 2 minutes. We'll see you there.
They say it's just rec. Just rec, where kids learn to try again. Just rec, where confidence begins. Where teamwork, effort, and fun matter more than trophies. It's not about perfection. It's about participation. It's not just rec. It's where kids learn to love the game and themselves. It's just rec until they learn teamwork for life. It's just rec, but it's everything to them. It's more than rec. It's a movement. It's just rec until you realize it's shaping the next generation. Together, we're not just running programs, we're building a culture of confidence, connection, and community. Join us.
This year, we didn't just attend an event. We became part of something bigger. IPRA 2026 brought together leaders, innovators, and community builders, all united by one mission: to strengthen parks, recreation, and the people they serve. For DPRS Media Network, it was an honor to join IPRA 2026 and take part in meaningful, real-time conversations, capturing stories and amplifying voices that matter. To IPRA, thank you for creating a space where collaboration thrives and the future of parks and recreation is shaped together. We extend our deepest gratitude to Amelia and all our partners who made these live interviews possible. IPRA 2026 wasn't just an event, it was a reminder that when communities connect and stories are shared, impact follows. From all of us at DPRS Media Network, thank you, IPRA. Thank you, partners and sponsors. We're honored to stand with you and excited for what's next.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Youth Sports Mastery Show, and today we're really going to have a great conversation diving in specifically in the women's game. And when I say women's, I'm going to talk about girls' sports as well, obviously, because we're the youth sports space. So let's bring out, I believe Pam is available to join us here. Pam, if you're there, bring her in. There we go. Hi, Pam Baker.
Hello. Great to see you, Aaron.
You as well. Hey, I love this conversation. I know as a girl dad, right? My daughter came up and she did cheerleading and basketball and soccer and volleyball and just about every sport possible across the board. But I want to be able to introduce you and give you the full ado, and yet I don't have 40 minutes to do that. So probably better, let's start with your story. What inspired you? Give me your background a little bit in terms of sports in general, and then we can dive in.
I played soccer and tennis really poorly as a kid, but I got out there and enjoyed it. And I've always been a fan. I grew up a fan of tennis and football and basketball and all the things. And my dad was an athlete, and then my husband was a big athlete. His sports were basketball and football, and he was really the product of great coaches. And when we had twin daughters, he was the first one to get out there and raise his hand to coach. So at the time, I was like, I can't coach. I'm not qualified. I was working in the corporate world in healthcare for my whole career, but it was something that was really important to him. He was somebody who was inspired by great coaches throughout his path playing and wanted to give that back to other kids. I think he met one of his colleagues early on, and they found out they were both coaching, and he asked his friend, hey, how'd the team do? And he said, I don't know. I'll let you know in 30 years. And he was like, that's exactly it. That's what this is all about. So early on in COVID, he was diagnosed with late stage pancreatic cancer and passed away just a couple months later. And so it was at a time when we couldn't do funerals, but people wanted to do something to keep that memory alive. And when he was coaching, because he was coaching girls, he worked really hard to get women into coaching with him because he knew that they would benefit. And so would he as a coach of these different beings than he was as a kid. And so that's what we did. We set up a fund with our local Parks and Rec Foundation that was dedicated to getting more women into coaching youth sports. And at the time, I will tell you, Erin, I had no idea what that meant, but I knew that it was near and dear to what Doug really cared about. And so we set out to see what we could do.
What a great legacy for Doug, and sorry to hear that he passed. But if meaningful life, right, and people like you and those that can carry it on going forward, it's wonderful. So when you talk about women's coaching, because there's stats, I've met with several. I've had guests on the show, and Jordan does it, and some of these others talking about the importance of women coaching, right? And I know when my daughter played sports, being able to have a role model, right? That was a mom or a female or whatever the case may be to be able to connect. It's a different level of connection. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, it is a different level of connection. I think there's greater willingness to talk about the things that girls are navigating. We hear a lot about the impact of the menstrual cycle and not having sports bras. And those are things that are harder for girls to talk to men about. And so that's essentially where we focused, is to try to get more moms into coaching youth sports. And what we found is that they were really busy. And, for the moms who are listening, I'm sure they can relate. We talked to a group of retirees. They had this bucket list that they wanted to accomplish, but we went to this group of female athletes and asked them about the idea. And they were really intrigued because sports had done something powerful for them. Many of them hadn't had any or many female coaches, and they liked the idea of being the first for other kids. And so the first season, when we brought this group of 22 young women together to coach kids, what we found is that connection is incredibly powerful, because you have, when they're coaching girls, because our coaches coach both girls and boys,
right?
When they're coaching girls, yes, there is that same gender connectivity and ability to engage in some of those different conversations. But for our coaches who are between the ages of 15 to 26, they're also so much closer in age to the kids that they're coaching. And so they're so much more relatable than those of us who are moms are. And they understand much more what it's like to be that 8 or 9 or 10-year-old girl. And so that connection is incredibly powerful. I've watched some of our players walk down the street, or the main street in our town, and they see their coaches.
Yeah.
You would think they're running into Taylor Swift. It is this really, it has so much impact for them to be mentored and coached by somebody that they can relate to.
That's so it seems like right? But yet we don't. And I think part of it is the ability to make the confidence so that the women feel comfortable going out there. And don't get me wrong, youth sports has its challenges, right? And it's tough when you've got moms or dads or whoever's out there, uncles, cousins, whoever, screaming and yelling and making not a real positive experience. But I got to imagine, I know as a father, when I coached and I watched my daughter's mom do some coaching with them, and watching the relationship, it's a real special bond. But I love that you're taking it a step further. You're really trying to just get women in general to coach, not just as a parent. So you mentioned that. So I want to want to pull on the thread a little bit on that one. But before I get too deep into that, your organization talks about coach today, lead for life, right? That's one of the things. That's one of
Yeah.
your. I actually did my homework. See, I've been
Yes.
paying attention.
Well
Yeah,
done.
yeah. So I'm a firm believer that there is no better life skill teaching tool than youth sports.
Mhm.
Right? I think it reveals character or lack thereof. It gives a chance to build, and all these different factors develop relationships, all those across the board. And I feel like it's such an important piece that unfortunately only 5 out of 10 kids are participating now. When I was a kid, it was closer to 8 or 9 out of 10. So I feel like I get it. Like as soon as I saw this, oh, I understand that. But how do you explain that to others in terms of coach today and lead for life?
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of data about the connection between sports and developing great skills, leadership skills, what have you. And we actually have taken a slightly different tack and use the experience of coaching youth sports as a way for these young women to develop lifelong leadership skills. So
Okay.
they come in already having played the sport. So they have those leadership skills they've learned through playing. And then
Okay.
we're layering on another set of leadership skills through the experience of coaching. They have to figure out how to motivate every kid on the team. They have to figure out how to communicate to both parents, to referees, to kids themselves. They have to figure out how to adapt when the field is booked or the gym is taken over by a yoga class, but they still need to run their practice. They have to navigate some conflicts sometimes with parents or other officials.
Yeah.
So, a whole other set of leadership skills that these young gals are learning, but they're learning them generally before they're heading out into their careers. And so that's really the basis of our tagline is they're coaching today, but the leadership skills that they are learning, we expect will serve them for life. And they are the very same skills that I use every day in the corporate world. And so
Right.
we're just front loading them so that we hope they will benefit them for a lot longer.
Yeah, the whole interesting thing about that to me, which is an interesting piece of the puzzle, as I watch through this whole navigation thing, is that you're right. But the staff I have here at the National Cav Athletics, obviously we're in athletics, people that know how to compete, right? But one thing I think that I watch girls. So I refereed basketball for a long time. And I remember when, especially youngers, I would referee young girls. But I remember there was a different way they attacked the game,
Mm.
right? Some, not, I don't want to justify, but the idea of getting into a girl's mindset is one thing because I've never been a little girl, right?
Yeah.
But there's so many other factors that go along with it, like you're talking about, from mental struggle to just even what kit you're going to bring to make sure you're prepared. Because
Right.
I'm not thinking of that, right?
Right.
Across the board. When you bring the dealing with the lack of female coaches into this, like I look at it and go, really, like 22% of coaches that are volunteers are female.
Yeah.
Like 8 out of 10 are male.
Yeah.
What's going on? What are we doing about that? How does that even be a thing?
Yeah, what's so interesting to me is there's data in the corporate sector about women generally need to be about 97% qualified to raise their hand and apply for a job, and men need to have done about 40 or 50% of the things on the job description. And what I find is the same thing is true in coaching. As we started this effort, we went out and talked to all of these women who had played sports. I mean, had played at elite levels. And we heard the same version of the pushback. Oh, but I didn't play long enough. I only played it at a D2
Really?
school. I haven't been trained for it. And I will say my husband, who was a great coach and a great guy, but when our daughters wanted to play soccer, he raised his hand and said, I'd be happy to coach the team. And I was like, you've never touched a soccer ball a day in your life. And he's like, I know, but I've got it. And he came back home and I said, how'd the training go? He said, great. This offsides thing, what is that? And I was like, oh my God, you're so not qualified. But I mean, and he was an amazing coach because he was all about the kids. But the women, I think, have this different set of expectations that we put on ourselves that we need to have done it. We need to have been trained for it. We need to have a whole career in it. And that's not the point. And part of the way that we've addressed that is when we train our coaches in this leadership academy, it is this female dominant environment. Anybody who's ever coached walks into that room and they're like, this room is different because it is mostly women. And having that community around them is an incredibly powerful accelerator and an invitation for young women to say, okay, I'm nervous about it. I'm not sure I'm qualified, but I know some of these people, so I'm going to come along and I'm going to give it a go. And that's what
So,
we're trying to do.
but okay, so these are self-imposed limitations, and we know boys and girls are different when they're little, right? And that's part of the deal. They get a different set of rules, right? Sometimes, and they get that. So you're educating the coaches. So your coaches. So tell me a little bit more about the coaches. I'm going to pull on that a little bit. So your coaches, they're 16 to 30. There's like, what's the coach's age?
Our target range is 15 to 26. So they're in high school, college, recently graduated. And we set that range because generally those folks are kind of pre-career. Not always. Some people launch a little later. And so, but that's really the idea behind that target range. So that, again, we're really front loading these leadership skills before they're heading out into their jobs.
Okay. So
and they've played a sport, Aaron. That's important too. So we take young women who've played a sport, and if they played the sport, we can teach them how to coach that sport.
Okay, but so if I've played volleyball, you want to recruit me to coach volleyball. What if I haven't played volleyball, but I want to coach soccer? Are you okay with that or no?
We generally have people coach the sport that they've played, and here's why. Because we're already changing the paradigm of having a young woman that most parents don't think is possibly qualified to be the coach.
Yeah.
And so having her not have played that sport is another barrier. And so what we found is we set them up for success more effectively when they are coaching a sport that they already know how to play.
Yeah, here at the National Academy of Athletics, about 40% of our coaches are female. In fact, interesting enough, also, oh yeah, over half our PE teachers are female instructors.
Awesome.
So we're blessed. Good. Yeah, we're chasing that. And my mom was a strong woman, so she said make sure she marched for women's rights. So I'm supporting that. I'm backing that up. But okay, so looking at this is really interesting to me as I navigate through this, because it seems like a no-brainer, but then we've got to find a way to calling all women, calling all moms. How do we instill? For me, confidence comes through failure. Mm-hmm. And it sucks, right? Because the reason why I think my kids are confident is because I gave them the freedom to fail without judgment.
Right.
Right. Yep. Don't get me wrong. There's accountability, sure. Right? And wins and losses, and we were competitive, but they could do it their way.
Yeah.
So how do you get like it's interesting. When I coached my daughter's team, I had to just encourage them to want to shoot the ball. Mm-hmm. Because they're afraid of missing because of what they've been taught. So we changed it. We actually made it each quarter. Oh boy, this little girl, it was hilarious. I said each quarter I want to get 10 shots. It wasn't to make 10, whatever. I just wanted 10 shots. Sure. So I had the girls are on the bench with the chart thing, and every time we shot the ball, we get a notch. Yeah. Right. And that we were focused just on 10 shots. It was hilarious because sometimes the ball would go over the backboard and my entire bench is cheering. Yeah. Right. Energy.
Effort, not outcome. Right.
Boom. That's it. Right. So we're focused on the effort rather than result. And guess what happened? We made 2 because of luck, 2 becomes a skill, 8, 16, 24, 32 points. We ended up winning the whole championship. It was bizarre with a bunch of little ragtag girls, but they had the confidence to let it fly. Yeah. And it was marvelous. Now, granted, I did change the rules a little bit after we got about a third of the way to say, now let's see which it's got to hit the rim. And then, let's at least get it close. But they were just throwing it up. We're getting
to the system. We do the same thing when we train our kids.
Yeah. So you're taking, and again, if a young woman, a 16-year-old, 18-year-old, 20-year-old has played, but they didn't play college, they didn't play high level, they didn't play, that's okay.
That's okay. And I don't look at confidence as the starting point. I think that's the mistake, is that so many people wait for that time to feel confident and then that permission of stepping in. And I look at it as you have to have the courage to try it, right? Because you're not going to get it in the goal the first 10, maybe 15, 20 times. But when you get out there and when you do it and it doesn't go perfectly, it is just like leadership. you can't learn leadership and do it perfectly the first time.
Right.
You can't learn to coach and do it perfectly the first time. That's why we have mentors for all of our coach teams. The mentor is the adult there who can help them process what happened, what went well, what didn't go so well, and how to do it differently the next time. And we ask the mentors not to step in, let these young women experience it, because that's where the learning happens. But you have to have the courage to do it. And the confidence comes on the other side. The confidence comes from, wow, that was kind of a mess. I came back the next week, figured out how to do it differently. And the next time it went better. That's the confidence that comes from, I can use my resources to learn how to do it differently and see a different outcome.
I love that. When my kids learned to walk, I didn't have to force them to get up and walk. They wanted to walk. They got up and fell down. They got up and fell down, and they got through it, and they developed the confidence and just went for it. Right.
Right.
So how do we take that lesson, what you're talking about, to someone, because it's such a powerful teaching opportunity, but if they don't have that initial confidence, right, then how do you even get them to say, okay, I'll try?
Yeah. When we go into a new community, we really look to the adults around these young women to encourage them to step in. Sometimes that's the coach. Sometimes it's a teacher. Sometimes it's the trusted adult who happens to know all of the girls in the community and say, I see something in you. I know you're going to be a great coach and a great leader. I want you to go do this. After the first season, we don't have to do anything to recruit these young women, because they bring their friends in, they bring their teammates in. They say, we've had gals where the first season has not gone well. They've gotten some difficult feedback, and they are the first ones to say, I want to do it again.
Pam, hold on a second. I want to make sure for clarity so that people are watching here. When you say it hasn't gone well, you're not talking they didn't win the championship.
No.
Okay.
I'm so glad you asked that. Sometimes they've had parents whose expectations, I think your piece right up front is great. We coach at rec sports. It is about playing. It is about getting kids to enjoy the game and having fun and learning some skills. That's the focus. Not all parents are fully on board with that idea, even when they're signing their kids up for rec sports. And so you have some difficult feedback that comes from those parents. That's really what I mean. And yet, sometimes there's something to learn from it. Sometimes there's something we say, just toss that one. But there often is a thread of something that is valuable. And they come back and say, okay, got it. So I wasn't really happy with how that ended. I want to do it again. I'm going to do it differently. And what is really exciting to me is the level of resilience that these young women develop is incredibly powerful. And it just, if we can fast forward 20 years and see what they do with it, I'm super excited to watch.
I was at Colorado Springs with Julie Foudy, was at the Project Play conference.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit. We got a couple of minutes, which was kind of cool. And she was just talking about just that feeling of breaking through when you don't think you can do it, and then you do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it feels to me, especially for these women, these young girls, to do that, I could see with that level of confidence, because you're like you say, when you're doing it. She also said something that I thought was pretty cool, was when you can teach it, you become a better player.
Sure. See one, do one, teach one. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so true. You learn so much through the experience of teaching it. And, as I say, we are front loading these skills for these young women. We're playing the long game here, but we are seeing these incredibly exciting early examples of leadership. We have, I want to share a quick one because it just came to me a couple days ago. We have a young woman who's coached with us 3 seasons. She's a high school junior. There was some scuttlebutt at the high school about the JV softball coach, and people were deciding not to play. They were not fans. And so rather than getting mired in that, she said, she was thinking about playing varsity, but she said, actually, I want to coach the JV team. So she reached out to her mentors and said, here's my idea. I'd like to do it. There's never been a high school student who's coached the JV team, but here's why I think I'm qualified. Can you give me some feedback and guidance on this approach? They did. She went to her athletic director, put together a PowerPoint about why she should be brought on as the JV coach. The AD said, in 15 years, I've never seen any aspiring coach bring a PowerPoint to me.
Yeah.
And she got hired. And
Good.
so this is a young woman who absolutely saw the potential for no in so many ways. She was the first. She's only 16 years old. And I
Wow.
look at the confidence in herself that requires and think, what can that look like 20, 30 years down the line?
Yeah. You know, the stats are ridiculous about girls that play sports through the age of 16. They're off the
Mm.
charts in terms of the C-suite women, the top 2% earners, all the things they learn. I mean, I think if you're out there and you don't know this, look it up. You need to know it, because if you're a girl mom or a girl dad, you know what? Take advantage of this, right? To get them involved. But
Published by
now,
Ernst & Young and ESPNW about 12 or so years ago. So it's a
yeah,
great study.
yeah, great study that's there. So let me ask you a question though. So if you've got these mentors, I want to know, because at the National Cab Athletics, the people that we put out on the field that coach, right? Because we're taking care of kids, they go through our background check, our mandatory reporter, concussion protocol, bully prevention, my talk, teach, play. They get certified. They go through our online training. They go through the Zoom training. Okay, so that's what we put out there, right? Because that's what we do. So let's talk about your mentors, because if I've got a daughter who's 16, 17, 18 years old, man, I would love her to get this experience. In fact, my daughter, I've got a picture on her somewhere. She went back and coached a third grade CYO basketball team and had a blast with these little girls. And they loved it because she was such a great role model and she could still play, which is really cool for them.
So fun.
But where are these mentors coming from, so that we kind of get a little bit more? I got to assume they're built, right? You have them in your system and you build them, because they're not out there, going to this. They're educating, but it sounds like you get a really beautiful balance between leadership and also almost the Stephen Covey seek to understand before being understood kind of a model for them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So our mentors are amazing. I always think our mentors are the difference makers, because they help these young women over those tough hurdles that they will face and help them make sense of them and help figure out how to do things differently the next go round. So they do go through a background check. So we make sure that it's, and they understand working with kids and all of those pieces. They come from a few different places. A lot of times they come from the sports organization that we're working with. In many cases, they are parents whose kids played in that sports organization and their kids have aged out, but they still feel some connection to that sports organization. Okay. Sometimes they're empty nesters. And there are folks who had kids who are playing a lot of sports and now they have a whole bunch of extra free time on their hands. Sometimes they're teachers, so they're accustomed to working with our demographic. Sometimes they're folks who are taking a career break. So they don't need to have coached themselves. They do just need to understand what good leadership looks like and really care about the success of these young women. Then we take them through whole mentor training. So we don't leave that to them. But those are the two keys. A lot of folks think, I need to have been an expert coach. That's not what we're going for. We're really going there we want them to be this safe space for young women to be able to learn from, bounce ideas off of, get feedback from.
So you're gonna help even if they've never coached before, because your mentors have experience and can guide them down the path and make sure that it's a safe space for them to learn, even though sometimes it's not as safe, joking around, right? Because the parents can be nuts and whatever's going on. I work with the Silicon Valley Officials Association, and we train basketball officials.
Yeah.
And each year there's probably 20 to 25 women that come out and get trained to referee. And it's really a cool, you want to talk about leadership skills and be able to handle pressure and all that. It's really a cool fit for that. I'm wondering, I should probably connect them with you, because those that coach and referee, what a great synergy for them to even get more of a positive experience out of that, right?
Absolutely. I think we'd see a couple ways to connect with them. Both our coaches who have coached a few seasons and then want to do something different that has some leadership components, even our gals who are coaching and aren't coaching that season, but want to do something a little different. Yeah. So I look at getting more female officials into the system as a really good opportunity for us as well. So yeah, love to chat.
Yeah, you know what? I'm speaking at their camp in June. Let's make sure we connect. I might even bring you in to have a chat with them or something. It'll be kind
Great.
of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
fact, a lot of the leaders in the girls' side, the women's sports, are coming up. The females are really, it's great. You see women NFL officials. You see, I mean, it's a lot of NBA officials.
Yeah.
Violet Palmer and then we were involved in some of the training with them back in the day. So it's a real cool connection going forward. I used to own the Superstar Invitational Basketball Camp. When I took that program over, I opened up a girls' side, and they go, "Oh, no one will do it." This is back in the, oh my God, early '80s. So don't tell anybody. But anyways, but it worked. You know what I mean? We got
Yeah.
150, 200 girls came out. They competed, and the role model was great. And having Annie Myers and just amazing athletes come out, because getting the right role model can be the whole game change what they are. In fact, I just ran into Sandy Spin Slade, who you probably know. She was the one that taught me to juggle. She used to come out to camp. She could have been a globetrotter. She was that good. But okay, enough of the tangents. We're going to take a break in a second. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about how does this work with Parks and Recreation, so that if there's a Parks and Rec coordinator out there or somebody that's running something, how does that work? I've got a couple ideas around coaches across America. I've got some different ideas I want to run, but let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to dive back in with Pam, talking women and girls in sports. See you in 2.
It didn't start with a studio, or a big budget, or a perfect plan. It started with belief. Belief that stories matter. Belief that voices deserve to be heard. Belief that community is powerful. What began as a single conversation has grown into something far bigger than us. Today we pause, we reflect, and we say thank you. To our guests, thank you for showing up, for being honest, for trusting us with your stories and letting the world hear them. To our partners and sponsors, thank you for standing with us when the vision was still taking shape. Your belief gave this network its foundation. And to our audience, the ones who listened, who watched, who shared, who believed. You didn't just support DPRS Media Network, you built it. This past year changed everything. We grew our shows, we raised our standards, we reached new communities, and we told stories that needed to be told. From parks and recreation to sports, youth, technology, and culture. We learned something important. Growth isn't about numbers, it's about impact. As we grow, our mission becomes clear. Our mission is to create media that matters, media that educates, media that inspires, media that connects people through honest, human storytelling. To spotlight the people, the programs, and the ideas shaping parks, recreation, sports, and the future of our shared spaces. And our vision is bold. We envision a media network that doesn't just document the world, but helps shape it, where local voices spark global change, where communities see themselves reflected, and where media is a force for good. The future ahead is bigger than any single episode. More voices, more stories, more collaboration, live events, original films, deeper conversations, and a growing community united by purpose. From episode 1 to episode 400, thank you for believing when it was hard. Thank you for staying when it was uncertain. And thank you for walking this journey with us. This is DPRS Media Network, built by community, driven by purpose, powered by stories. And we're just getting started.
Welcome back. I keep seeing these things. It just gets inspiring to be a part of something that's growing like this, and I love it, and watching the growth. We're going to be at the California Parks and Recreation Society's conference coming up. I'll be speaking. We have a booth, and we're going to do some live shows down there, so it should be a lot of fun. Craig and the team at DPRS are just phenomenal. The connections, the community, and Parks and Rec in general. I grew up playing Parks and Rec. I grew up in a time where everybody played sports, and it was just more for the love of the game recreationally. And there's a lot of great recreation professionals out there that are trying to keep youth sports happening. And yet there's a lot of challenges, from budget cuts to joint use agreements to all kinds of challenges in making it happen. But one of them is getting coaches. And I believe that through what you guys do at the Women's Coaching Alliance, there could be some synergy because, right? Parks and Recreation, youth sports, you guys coaching the program, it's a no-brainer. So if I was a Parks and Recreation, two things I want to ask you. It's a double-ender, so bear with me. One is, how would they get in touch with you in terms of being able to use your service? I know you're not nationwide, so we got to talk a little about what location. But the other is, what if they wanted to do more to add girls and women to their coaching staff? So let's start first with, let's go local, then we'll go global. Deal?
Yeah, absolutely. So Parks and Rec is where we started. My husband, when he coached, it was mostly for Parks and Rec sport. So we had an easy opening there, and I went to them and said, I have this idea. And our partners there, Nicole Acquisti, was the first one to raise her hand and say, yes, let's try it. And they have been amazing partners throughout as we've grown and learned and had to adapt. And for us, it's a great opportunity. We want to make sure that the young women are coaching in the communities that they come from, so that they are visible and present. And these young women, the girls and boys that they coach, recognize them. And for Parks and Rec, it's great because they often have waiting lists. And so we're helping get kids off of the waiting list by having more kids play. So essentially what we need when we go into a new community are kind of 3 connection points. So the first piece, we do pay our coaches. And I want to just touch on that for a minute, because the reason that we pay our coaches is we are developing future leaders. And I want to send young women into the world with an understanding of their value and worth and being able to stand for that. And so that's a really important component of our program. So when we have funding, and we're largely donor funded, then we need 3 points of connection. We need the sports organization, which is oftentimes Parks and Rec, who's actually running the leagues and looking for coaches. Then we need the pool of potential young women to coach, which again, we often get to through coaches, teachers, other adults in the community who are excited about what we're doing. And then we need the pool of mentors to step up and mentor them. And then we can get going, because we have all of the training and the playbooks and the practice plans for the sports. And then we can train the young women, we can train the mentors, and really get going. As we go into a new community, we tend to start small. We have usually 2 or 3 teams that are coached by our young women. And our coaches do coach in a team of 2. So one team is 2 young women coaching. And that way, when we start small, we can learn and iterate more easily as we grow. For those communities that say, I'm really interested in getting more women into coaching, there are a few pieces of advice that I would have. One is to build that community of women. When I tell you that the impact of training these women together is important, I just can't say enough about the way that they show up, the way that they engage when they feel as though it's a safer environment. And that's not to say that men don't create that safety, but it is a different experience.
100%. Yeah.
I do want to say, men are a really important part of what we do. We have male mentors, we have male supporters in so many different ways. So this is not a women's only organization. And being able to be vulnerable enough to ask the real questions that are on their mind is really important as we think about creating that community. There's actually some data on the Tucker Center on Girls and Women in Sport from the University of Minnesota on how to get more women into coaching. And we took a lot of that from their recommendations. Team coaching is another one, so that they've got somebody to lean on and collaborate with. There's a piece around thinking about, depending on your demographic, if it's moms coaching and they've got young kids, which is often the case, how are you thinking about childcare? Are there other kids from the local area that you can get to watch the kids of those coaches and make it an easier yes?
So much.
So I think those are a few things that we've really seen as important to growing and keeping that community going. We'd love to be in more communities, but
okay, but hold on. I don't want to leave that.
Yeah.
So when you say community, they know where you're at. Where are you?
Oh, good question.
Yeah.
We started here in the Bay Area in San Francisco. So we are essentially in communities from San Francisco down to Palo Alto. We're also in LA County as of last fall, and we're headed to Westchester, New York this fall as well. So we have interest from lots of different places as well. The other piece you asked that I didn't answer is how to find us. So
Yeah.
our website is womenscoachingalliance.org. So you can drop us a note, hello at, or I'm Pam at, either one. And we do our best to get to as many communities as we can. We're right now in the process of saying we have more demand than we can fulfill, which is a great problem to have. So how do we take what we do, make sure we maintain the integrity and the value of all of it, and scale so that we can meet the need that exists?
Got it. Yeah. And it's always interesting to me and challenging because if you are funded by different sources, obviously the ups and downs of where you go and to make it sustainable. And you guys got a good cause, and obviously it's working, which is great. I love seeing that. A good friend of mine, Jordan Ziff, who's down in San Diego, she's doing. She has a show. Actually, she interviews women in sport, and they do it while she's driving to practices or games. It's a really cool way, just to bring it into what's going on. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a cool way to connect it up. So, just for those that are, I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about coaches. If I'm a girl dad or mom and my daughter's going to play, I do think it's important that we try to find a female coach, but it's not the end of the world if they're not, right? Because we want them to play.
Yeah.
But that means that Parks and Recs, and they go out there, and because right now I know a lot of Parks and Recs, they're hurting for coaches, right? They're trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
So when you recruit, you didn't talk a little bit about that. I'd like to dig a little bit. I don't want to give all your secrets, but how if I'm in San Antonio, Texas, I'm trying to get coaches. Where do you go get your coaches from? Where do you pull from?
Yeah, so we really look to the people who know people within the community. Having a local presence and people who are connected in that area is really key. So we go to those people and say, who do we need to talk to? We need a group of 8-10 young women to coach this season. We need them to be playing these sports. How do we get them? We don't know. I can't go into San Antonio and know where those points of connections will be, but I bet I can find somebody who does. And so it's finding that person and saying, it just kind of like leadership, right? I don't have that expertise. You do. Can you help me? This is what I'm trying to achieve.
And to get the connection of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Again, where we've gone typically have been the high school coaches, the sports organizations themselves. Oftentimes we work with, like soccer is a great example, where we have these gals who start at age 6 and they're playing till they're 18. Well, some of those 18-year-olds would make great coaches for the younger kids. And so sometimes they still have them within that organization. So going to them and saying, can we can we connect with these gals and bring them in as potential coaches?
I'm just thinking out loud on that. But if I was coaching Redwood City soccer, and my girls have aged out.
Yeah.
And you came to me and said, hey, the girls have aged out. We want to try to do something to keep them engaged in the game.
Yeah.
Can you please send an email to them or Facebook Messenger or whatever them? That would make sense, right? That would be a good way to do it.
And that's something that a number of organizations have done for us. They say, yeah, these gals are playing, or they have played, or they're kind of still hanging around and would like to stay involved. Sometimes folks bring them in as assistant coaches. Our coaches are head coaches, or they are not assistants, but sometimes we can pull from the other gals who have been assistant coaches on other teams and get them to step into that frontline leadership role.
So just for scale, have you had 4, 6, 10? I mean, like how many people have come through? And it's always nice to hear a little bit of success, like you said earlier, but just as you're building this up, have you been doing this for 75 years or it's new? Like talk about that a little bit.
We started in August of 2022. So we're about 3.5 years old. And so far we've had 170 young women who've coached with us. So we've coached over 1,100 kids so far. And as you can imagine, as we go into these new communities, each of those kind of grow in concentric circles. So, yeah, and many of those gals have come back multiple seasons to
Yeah.
coach.
You know what? I want to, at one point, I want to talk to you about because in our end, it can become a career.
Sure,
You know, if
absolutely.
they really love what they're doing, they can come to National Academy of Athletics and work with you. You've got Missy down there that handles the Peninsula and Silicon Valley. So she's got basically Santa Clara all the way up to Daly City. So be a great connection.
And that's one of the things that we find. So many of these young women are thinking about, what am I going to do with my career? And they come into coaching and they recognize, I like this sports thing. Maybe they'll stay in coaching, or maybe they'll do something entirely different. But the experience of having played sports and then having coached sports, they see it from these different angles.
Right.
And what I would guess is, over time, we're going to have a disproportionate number that remain in the sports ecosystem in some way.
Yeah. Well, I would think so, because, you know, this is what my belief, and it goes back to Coach Wooden and Riley and all these guys, is that you gotta, man, George Carl, every day at practice, coach, fundamentals, the basics.
Mhm.
And what you're really doing, which I love your model, is you're helping develop basics that in some sense they don't even realize what they're developing.
Yeah.
They're finding their voice.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
It's one of the big things. I mean, so many of these young women at the beginning of the season, they're like, I have to talk to how many people? And, but then they have to do it week after week. So by the end of the season, they've just gotten better at it. Those butterflies have calmed down a little bit in their stomachs. And so that is an incredibly valuable skill to have, because they're talking to adults, to parents, to kids, and having to figure out, how do I say something that's going to resonate with both? That's not an easy task. So yeah, all of that repetition pays off.
So with all these win all over the place, sometimes I wonder why people don't get it right across the board. And I feel like I want to do more. Like, what can we do more? So how, if we want to do more to support what you're doing, what do we do?
Yeah. Well, there are a few things. I mean, obviously, again, we're donor funded. So, financial support always helps. That's from both individuals and also the organizations that are out there wanting to support our work. We actually just launched a study at the end of last year with the Tucker Center to look at what are the leadership skills that women gain through coaching. Because
Right.
my belief is, when companies see that this is a great training ground for their future employees, they will
Yeah.
invest in it. So all of that kind of support makes a ton of difference. Mentors make a huge difference. So just raising your hand, say, yes, I will mentor. If we're in your area, great. And if we're not, and you can encourage a young woman to get out there and coach and be her mentor, that's amazing too. So we have a great model, but we can't be everywhere just yet. And part of this is taking this idea and having it happen at the grassroots level. But it really does take a community, and community
Yes.
doesn't have to be the whole town, but it has to be a group of people that are coming together to do this as a group and supporting each other. And that makes all the difference.
Does. Well, you sounds like you've been spending a lot of time talking to Alicia. Alicia Pelton.
Yes.
We love Alicia. She's wonderful. Yeah, she's great.
Such great people.
Yeah, she totally gets it. She's the stats. She knows the stats. Boom, boom,
She
boom,
sure
which is
does.
good.
Yes.
So if I'm just thinking out loud. So as an example, we have an organization in Sonoma County, and I know it's a little far for you guys, that 2,400 kids play in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 65% of them are boys teams, 35% are girls teams, 3rd through 8th grade basketball.
Okay.
11 different parishes throughout all over. So if my organization, I happen to be the president of the league,
That helps.
and yeah, well, it's good to be the king once in a while. Okay. So I'm in charge, and I say, you know what? We use parent volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
But man, to be able to work with something like you makes sense. So can you explain a little bit about the difference between, in your mind, and how to go about it, whether it's a parent volunteer coach versus, wait, I can bring in a coach from the Women's Coaching Alliance program. They'll have 2 young women to come in and coach these girls. I think it's an absolute no-brainer,
Yeah.
but I'd like the rest of the world to hear it from you.
Well, the beauty is we can still use those parent volunteers. They'll probably make great mentors for these young women so they can stay involved in a different way. So the experience of having somebody who mentors them for these young women is invaluable. So what we find is we've had parents who've come to their kids' games when they're being coached by our coaches, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know I could be a mentor, and then I could be here. I'm going to be here anyway."
Right.
And I see my child interacting with this young woman in this whole different way, and I can be a source of value. It brings the community together in a really powerful way.
Love it.
So, yeah, I think again, it's really about we just need a funding source, and we're fortunate to have some great organizations that are funding us, and then finding the partner, the coaches, and the mentors who it sounds like you already have built in as the parent volunteers.
Parent volunteers. So I'm just trying to do it in my head, with a parent volunteer, they wouldn't necessarily be the mentor for that, right?
They
So
could.
they could.
Sure. Yeah. If you have them out there coaching, we would just say, okay, great. We have to make sure they're open, because some people who are coaching are not really happy about stepping back. So that
Yeah,
is,
that's the thing.
we
Yeah.
do have to check that. If they're open to it, then we can say, great, here's your role as a mentor. It's a lighter lift, quite frankly, because the coaches are doing all of the practice plans and figuring out the lineups and what have you. And here's your role as a mentor. Here's what we're asking you to do. Here's how to facilitate conversations with your
Okay.
coaches every week throughout the season so that they are learning and growing and developing those skills.
Got it. And the skills they're going to learn from being a coach is transferable. But I'm thinking about, so if I'm a league, I want to know that, Pam, you're delivering me coaches that I can know they've cleared whatever boundaries. So if my league needs background check and mandate report, all those things, you guys go through all that with them?
Yeah, so we have a couple of requirements like background checks, and there's an interview for the coaches and what have you. When we partner with a league, we make sure that our coaches adhere to whatever the league requires. Sometimes it's the same thing, sometimes the league has some additional requirements. And
Okay.
so we say, here's ours, but you're going to be coaching with this organization, so you need to follow their processes as well.
Got it. Okay. Love that. Okay, I'm going to shift to a little bit of philosophy. We've only got about eight minutes left or so, but I want
Okay.
to shift to
It's been a while
philosophy
since
because
my philosophy class.
yeah, here we go. Exact. Me too. Oh boy, but I philosophize every day. I'm just that. Okay, so for confidence, we both have had great conversations so far. I want to talk about what happens when one of your coaches fails or is frustrated and not being successful. Now, to me, I steal Coach Wooden's peace of mind that success is knowing you've done your very best. It doesn't matter the scoreboard. Did you do your best? Right? That's where I'm at. But when they're out there and they're coaching, and mom and dad want win, they want this, they want that. So how do you? I don't want to use the word protect, but how do you navigate through that space? Because I got to imagine, you know as well as I do, even in the rec space, bears can be cuckoo. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. So how do you navigate through that I know you got the philosophy, we're already there, but the philosophy of overcoming the obstacle. For us at the National Cav Athletics, we train them to take stumbling blocks, turn them into stepping stones
Yeah.
to the next time.
Yeah. And I think we're really aligned there. One of our big values that we talk about a lot is learning and growth. We are going to put you out there as the head coach, and this is the first time you've been a head coach. So you're not going to get it all right. And that's part of the point. That's a feature, not a bug, as they would say in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
So, but what we do ask for the mentors is to watch and observe the interaction, not get involved unless it's a safety issue, and then all bets are off. But when it is a difficult conversation, to be there so that you can help them process on the back end. And these young women will learn, and the learnings that they have from those difficult conversations are
Mhm.
incredibly powerful. We train them on all of the X's and O's and how to run a practice and what have you. The gal who does all of our curriculum has been a Positive Coaching Alliance facilitator for the last 25 years. So we're rooted in these positive coaching fundamentals.
Okay.
And there still will be parents who are saying things that are inappropriate and not okay. And so part of what we try to do is say, I don't look at that as a failure. That was a difficult moment. That was a difficult interaction. And one of the things that a lot of our mentors will say is a lot of them are working still. And they'll say, yeah, that was pretty tough, right? And I had a similar situation with my coworker last week who gave me some difficult feedback on one of my team members that was actually kind of off the mark. And yet I had to hear it. So it's not to minimize the experience for these young women, but it is to say to them, this experience, while uncomfortable, will serve you well over time. So you are learning skills that are going to be valuable for many, many years. So let's learn now how to handle that differently to come up with a different outcome.
So I love that. And it's a great reminder. We use the F's, the hey, how does that feel right now? Right? Because we don't forget that, because later in life, you're going to remember this and we're going to get over this. No problem. But when we do, remember that feeling, because now we'll remember what we do and how we process that. Because we use feel, felt, found. I see how you feel. I felt that way before. And you know what I found is this is a way out of it. And by doing that together with the F's, it finds a way, more F's, finds a way to creatively work the solution together. Yeah. But I love the fact that you're allowing them to experience it. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, when we train referees and coach want to be stupid, we step in and go, we're not doing that. Totally. Yeah. But the ability for them to experience, because I feel as though, it goes back to my daughter when she played softball. She was in a league, and long story, but she ended up playing. She played third base, and first game, the ball gets hit. It's one skip, hits her right in the thigh, and it knocks her off her feet. She goes down. Her mom goes to run out. Stupidly, I grabbed her mom by the hood to try to stop her and, did the whole thing. But we're past that. But I said, just give her a chance. And my daughter, she had a tear in her eye, and she looked out. The coach started walking, and she put her hand like, okay, I'm okay. Right? She got herself up, tears in her eyes, brushed her stuff off, finished the inning, and then went in. That, I was so proud of her. That night, she had a softball mark with the stripes on her thigh. And again, it's a painful lesson. But parents, if you're out there, my daughter learned to pick herself back up.
Exactly.
She had the fortitude at 8 years old to be able to do that. You know what I mean? And that's powerful. And I think we have to do that.
I couldn't agree more. And I think as a parent and as a leader within this organization, I see it. And I see this tendency for, we want to protect our kids. We don't want to see them hurt. And yet I can tell you so many of those times when I fell flat on my face, and boy, I never did the same thing again. It taught me a very powerful lesson of what not to do. And it stuck with me. And it stuck with me for an important reason, because it kept me out of doing it the second time.
See, Pam, you're smarter than me. What I did it 6 or 7 times. Remember, we used to play on the playground, and we'd have that merry-go-round, and you'd fly off. And eventually, like, okay, that hurts. Let's not do that. Let's do something different. But kids have to learn through experiential learning. I mean, all of us do. And if you learn through experiential learning and it leaves a mark, trust me, it leaves a mark, you do remember that.
Yeah.
Right. And I love the fact you've got this foundation that is building these amazing women that are going to go out there, and they're going to be the new leaders, and they're going to know how to be able to impose their will when they need to, and be able to communicate, and be able to take criticism, and all these things. That wouldn't it be nice if all of us, I don't care, can I get in that program, right? We all need that.
At the end of the day, what these young women are learning is emotional intelligence.
Amen.
They are learning how to manage themselves, manage the people around them, manage the situation, and how to attune and tweak based on the person in front of them, the situation they're faced with. And as I look at what the world is holding for us coming down the pike, the more people we have with great EQ in the world, the better we're all going to be.
Amen. All right. So now you just mentioned it. So I'm going to give you 1 minute. I'm going to shut up for a second, which is hard for me to do. But with your work with the Women's Coaching Alliance, 10 years from now, what impact do you guys have 10 years from now?
Yeah, we will be in most communities across the country, and we will be outside of the US. Because while we as women, I think in many cases, are in a decent spot in this country, there are so many countries where girls and young women have much less opportunity. And sports has this incredibly unifying effect. And when we can use it as a force for good, for more kids learning to play, more girls getting the chance to play, and more young women getting the chance to lead and being seen as leaders in their communities, I think that's incredibly powerful and has the ability to change the course of what happens in countries. So,
Love it.
those days.
Love it. I just got a message from Facebook that came through. Here's a question for you real quick.
Okay.
The first time I've had this one. This is kind of interesting. If I'm in the peninsula, how do I get in touch with Pam if I want to bring her to our youth basketball program?
Great. Reach out to me. I'm Pam at womenscoachingalliance.org, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Love to chat.
Okay, I'll make sure to connect you through Facebook, and we're good to go. All right, wow, look at that.
Thanks,
60
Aaron.
minutes. Boom, oh my goodness, so much fun. Thank you so much for coming in and bringing, and for what you do. Let's stay connected, keep the things going. Remember to check out www.itsjustrec.com. That's where we kind of share the stories. You can find us at nationalacademyofathletics.com, and keep watching for Women's Coaching Alliance. We're going to see more of that, I'm sure, on the socials and on LinkedIn and connected across the board. And remember, if you're out there coaching, always remind the kids, please remind the kids to play hard and have fun. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, Aaron.
In today's parks and recreation industry, communication, safety, and efficiency go hand in hand. That's where Outdoor Link comes in, delivering smart technology that empowers city departments and community planners to do more, smarter. Outdoor Link's platform connects and automates everything that keeps your parks running smoothly, from lighting and locks to signage, water features, Wi-Fi, and digital advertising. Control and schedule park lights for safety and energy savings. Remotely manage facility access. Update digital displays in real time. Coordinate fountains and splash pads. Provide public connectivity. And even run community or sponsorship campaigns on digital screens. All from one simple, unified platform, giving you real-time control, data, and cost efficiency. For parks and recreation agencies, that means safer spaces, smarter resource use, faster responses, and stronger community engagement. And behind every great park story is great infrastructure. That's why Outdoor Link proudly supports DPRS Media Company, helping the Daily Parks and Rec Show amplify the voices of professionals shaping our communities every day. Outdoor Link, smart, connected solutions for parks, recreation, and beyond.
Are you a vendor, brand, or service provider ready to connect with the heartbeat of local communities? At DPRS Media Co., we tell the stories shaping parks and recreation across America. Through podcasts, live streams, videos, and newsletters, we reach frontline leaders, city directors, and decision makers every single week. From youth sports and facilities to programming and policy, our audience is your audience. Sponsoring or partnering with DPRS Media Co. puts your brand in front of the professionals who build, budget, and buy for their communities. Launching a new product, growing your presence in public spaces, targeting cities, counties, or departments, DPRS is your trusted media partner. Whether you're in software, turf, aquatics, robotics, smart cities, or special events, partnering with DPRS puts your brand in the story. With commercials, interviews, social campaigns, newsletters, and live shows, we're your media team. Partner with us and grow your impact in the $200 billion parks and rec industry. DPRS Media Co. Stories that move parks and rec forward. Your audience is here. Let's meet them.